Hey everyone, this is your host Yoshino, and you're listening to episode number 148 of Artist Decoded. In this episode, I get the opportunity to talk to painter and artist Jennifer Pochinski. My friend Alex Konevsky told me about her work when him and his wife Hollis Heikemer were visiting No Wave a couple months back, and I instantly fell in love with her work. She has this really interesting approach and way that she paints figurative work that seems naive, but she has a very specific approach to her. And it was really interesting to be able to sit down with her and dissect her process and her train of thought and different things that she's been through in her life that have helped shape and mold her perspective as an artist. And I met her at B. Sakata Garo Gallery in Sacramento. I went up to the Bay Area in January to do this interview and also to see my madre. Hello, madre, mom. Shout out to my mom, because I never shout out to my mom on the podcast, but this is the time to do it, so I'm going to do it. And hey, mom, how's it going? But yes, so I really enjoy this interview with Jennifer. She's a very lovely person, and her work is phenomenal. Certainly go check out her work on Instagram. You can find it at Jennifer Pochinski. Before we begin this episode, Artist Decoded appreciates the support of Savoir Faire, importers of materials for the fine arts such as Sennelier, Fabriano, Raphael, and Isaby. For more information, follow Art Savoir Faire on Instagram and Facebook. And before I forget, please go to our iTunes page and leave us that shining 5-star review. It helps reviewers just like yourself to hear about this podcast, and it also helps us to get more sponsors and to be higher ranked on the iTunes chart, because that means something for some reason. At least to me, it means something. So if you can, do it. And if you can't, then don't do it. And that's fine too. So without further ado, here it is. My interview with painter Jennifer Pochinski for Artist Decoded. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I love your work.
Thank you. And thanks for coming all this way to come and see it in person. It means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured, being able to come and, to the gallery and see the work in person, it just kind of gives it much more depth than just seeing something on a 2-inch screen. You only see so much. You don't even get to see any of the brushstrokes really, or any of the movement,
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a cartoon of what it is. And also seeing something in a gallery setting is even nicer than seeing it in a studio, because, there's space around it, and I mean it's in its best light right now, so I appreciate it, really. So thanks.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So how did you get into painting to begin with?
I was really into art in high school, and I went to kind of a strict academic high school in Hawaii, but I really focused on art and languages. And then when I was in college, I was going to study languages, but I happened to take a painting course, and the teacher asked if I had a major, and I said no. And he says, well, maybe you should consider painting. So it just became my focus from then on, and I just have always painted and gotten more and more serious over the years. I was into it in my 20s, but I also got married. But by the time my first daughter was about 2, I just dove back into it, because I didn't exactly know where my life was heading, but I knew I wanted to paint. So,
So then you switch your major over to a fine art major in college at the University of Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then how long did you live in Hawaii until you moved over to California?
Well, my family moved to Hawaii when I was right before 6th grade. So I went to high school, and then my senior year I went to Germany as an exchange student. So when I came back, I just ended up going to the University of Hawaii and ended up studying art. And then I moved to Nevada when I got married, And I lived there 7 years. Then I moved back to Hawaii, and then we moved to Greece because my ex-husband was Greek. And I ended up living in Greece almost 8 years. And then December 2010, there was sort of a financial crash in Greece. And my ex-husband, who was actually living in California at the time, he kind of forced us or urged us very strongly to come to California. And I thought, oh, like Santa Rosa or LA. But it was Sacramento, which actually turned out to be just fine.
Yeah. And during this time, since college and even in high school, have you been painting throughout that entire time? Were there kind of like times when you stopped painting, or was it kind of this thing that you would continue to do throughout that time period?
It always was sort of like a stronghold. In college, I wasn't super social. I was kind of like, it was a Saturday night. I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, I guess I'll paint instead of going out. In my 20s, I started going out a little bit more. And I'd say up until, I feel like I never got away from it. I always felt like I was one of the painters that when they left college that I didn't stop. But when I had my kids, obviously I didn't paint, but I have to say that when I was probably about 30, I started to get very, very serious. Like I thought my life needs to be centered around painting. I need to do this. So, I had kids, but it was actually kind of easy to be staying at home and having these little kids. And as long as I could paint a couple hours a day, then I was fine, as I got older, then I could devote more time to it. And now my youngest daughter just left for college, and it's kind of great because I can just paint as much as I want or do creative things as much as I want. Yeah. Printmaking or clay or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have a couple things to say about that, but something that I continually, it's kind of a joke, but something that I say to myself or say to other people is I don't feel like I ever was an adult until I was about 29 or 30, but, I think, it's interesting because that painting continually draws you back. And do you feel like that you kind of found yourself through the creation of art, or like what has painting meant to you up until this point?
I think earlier, when I was in my late 20s, when I first got married, and it was just something that I could kind of control in my life. I was in this really bad marriage, and it was sort of like my way out, it really, I thought I could paint myself out of that. When I was in Greece, I wouldn't paint in the wintertime. I would paint, spring to fall because it was cold, and my studio was very cold. And then also when I went to Greece, my marriage broke apart immediately. So I thought, well, I can't be a painter. So I ended up going to this school called Octo, and I studied interior architecture. So I was going to classes in the fall, winter, spring. And when I graduated in 2007, I thought, well, I can't pursue painting. I have to go after these jobs. And I really thought I was done with painting, and I did that for 6 months. And then I just, all the jobs I had just dissolved, like the money dried up or whatever. And at this very same time, this gallerist had seen a painting of mine in a friend's house, and she came to see my work, and she gave me my first show. So then I just put interior architecture away forever. I've never really designed anything but my own kitchen, a small, tiny little kitchen in Greece. So I never did anything with it, because I think if you're meant to do it, it comes back around and meets you at every turn, And
I agree.
And it is great. I remember this architect in Greece bought one of my paintings, and he dabbled in painting, and he knew that I had this degree in interior design, and he goes, just paint. It's so much better, And so that was in the beginning.
Yeah.
I really put that behind me.
Definitely.
No. And I think it's just a great way to live your life. I mean, it sucks when you're first trying to find your voice and you're not showing your work. It feels like a curse, someone said to me once. And it's true because it's so thankless. Like you can't even define yourself. People say, what are you? And you say, I'm a painter. But they say, well, where do you show your work? And you say, I don't show my work. You feel kind of like a loser,
I see.
But it turns out that it's just a great way to spend your life, I think. I mean, I feel fortunate. I feel like I have something to do that gives me meaning,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting how like certain people's insecurities or, like certain things that people tell us, that we should do or, that we shouldn't do, or things that we internalize, like, oh, being able to establish myself in this career and work a 9-to-5 job or something, like, maybe that'll make me happy, or maybe, and you're constantly like reaching for those things, right? But at the end of the day, like, I feel like the more that we listen to our calling in life, whatever that is, whether it's a painter or whether that's, something in the arts or outside of the arts, the more that we go the path of least resistance, but I think it's just, it's something with Western culture as well. And just like that expectation of succeeding, and maybe that stems from like, it's probably just a humanistic sort of thing, but it's also deeply rooted in this sort of like old ideology of like the Industrial Revolution. And, now we're like moving into the technological revolution and things are adapting at like a tremendous rate. But, I guess where I was going with that is, it's interesting how things become circular in that way. And we kind of just do what we're supposed to do potentially. And then anyways, if we're conscious of it.
I think, the stakes are so high for the younger people to succeed, and we all want to succeed, but I don't think life is about accumulating wealth or having a good life, I think, now a path that I didn't take, but, maybe a sure way to success is to get your MFA and then immediately find a gallery right after you graduate. And I know this is what a lot of people do, and that's great. But I also think becoming an artist takes a long time. I mean, I don't think we're like pop stars, like we have to be 18 years old and then we fizzle out. I think you just get better. And especially women, I think we find our voices later in life because we've gone through all that crap of trying to be pleasing and pretty and all this. And then we finally go, you know what? Up yours. No.
Yeah. But I think that up yours attitude, I mean, I guess that's why I like jazz music and also punk, because they essentially embody the same thing, but one is informed, like more musically talented. I don't think that's necessarily an arguable thing. It's like jazz is, much more musically informed than punk music is, but it's like imbued with the same spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you definitely need that attitude to continue painting, the punk or jazz or whatever, don't you?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think like, even looking at like, I probably said this on the podcast because it made such an impact on me before, but, just the idea of like how Diebenkorn would just sit there in his studio and just look at a canvas for hours and hours and hours, and being able to allow himself to postulate and contemplate and be able to, like truthfully figure out what he wanted to put on that canvas. There's something beautiful about that. And I think because of just technological inundation and so many distractions, like people don't allow themselves to take the time to think about that, and truthfully. And I think that the inertia of life and the inertia of people's non-conscious state of being, they never reach that point where, they feel like they're in control with their own thoughts or things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think time is a really important element in paintings. And since my last show with Barry, I think I've really kind of figured out how to make that work, how to just infuse the element of time into my paintings. And it is a lot of patience. It's just letting things just sit, and whether you sit there and stare at them and you might come up with an answer, or just let them sit in the corner and see them out of the corner of your eye and have an idea about them. I didn't have that kind of patience earlier. I just wanted to, I was very impatient, and then I would just, I don't know. I've had a few tumultuous years after moving to California, just with my work. And so I think I finally kind of understand that, to be able to really look and wait,
Yeah, it's also interesting how like paintings, because you're the one, it's your hand, is your mind that is, creating the artwork on the canvas or the panel or whatever. But, to understand that that's like somewhat of a representation of your thoughts during that time period. And I think, even like you were saying that, it's easier for you to reflect on like past work from years ago because you've given the time to be able to like step away from that and have some sort of objectivity from it as much as you can,
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I it's funny because, with the show at Barry's, it was such a benchmark from the last show to this show, because immediately after I just knew my work had to change. It felt like it was too pleasing. And like, I felt like a lot of my work was just crying out to the world, like, please love me, or I don't know. And I was being too harsh on myself and overthinking it. I'm sure they're just like normal paintings and people may not get that message. But so I went about trying to change and going back to that attitude of up yours. I mean, I wanted my paintings, not to say please love me, but kind of like fuck you. You can edit that part out. But
no, that's great. I like it.
I wanted to find something that was more personal. I look at artists who, they do whatever they want. They're known to be assholes in real life, and kind of wanted to get some of that, attitude in my work. And when I'm working, instead of always saying, oh no, don't do that. Oh, don't paint that. Or don't. So I went through this time period of just forcing myself, not waiting to have a great idea, just painting. Like, there'd be times I'd be sitting in my studio and I'd get up to start painting and I'd like, oh no, I'd already talked myself out of it. And I would just be like gridlocked for hours, and it would happen day after day. And, finally I had to just get up and say, just do it anyway. And I think, oh no, it's going to look stupid. Do it, Yeah. And, I even read that letter from Saul LeWitt to Eva Hesse a million times where, he said, just do it, be uncool, stop looking over your shoulder. And I was painting on not panels or canvas, but gessoed illustration board, and just really trying to extinguish that voice that kept saying, oh, don't do that. Just do it and be weird. And just kind of invite the awkward moments, invite the innocent moments where you think you're, when you're not in charge and then something kind of incredible happens, and, just inviting awkwardness and, after a while, and then letting them sit, and then a new voice kind of started to emerge. And also there's some imagery I didn't think I was able to do, because.
What do you mean?
Like you paint it, it doesn't look like you. It looks awkward. It looks trite or whatever. So I would do it anyway. And I think what happened is basically I started to get detached from what I was, instead of like trying to be honest and whatever, emotional, I had a detachment, and I was able to allow things to happen because I wasn't controlling them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I guess this kind of brings me to those teachings of Seneca and Stoicism, and, you know, allowing yourself to understand that, you know, you're not in control of all situations, but you are in control of yourself. But I think in terms of artwork, like, you can't really force things. I mean, you can, through technical prowess, you can kind of create something that looks like technically sound or something, but you can't necessarily force good art to happen, you know? And I feel like it's interesting because, you know, you're talking about your struggles and like certain things that have happened like in your life. And I feel like, and maybe this is like kind of a romantic sort of statement, but, you know, I feel like it really shows in your artwork, that sort of tension. And you can tell that you've had like some technical like understandings, like a lot of technical understandings, but have broken that down into your own thing, you know? And I think, you know, even thinking of, I mean, I don't want to be comparative necessarily, but it's interesting, like being in the Bay Area, and it feels like that spirit of the Bay Area figurative movement is kind of like embodied with you in you a little bit, you know, like Joan Brown and like Deben Korn and, you know, and those sort of artists. And I know that you have also, you know, in the beginning, like when you were in college, you were a pretty big fan of Matisse as well. And that still feels like of a similar lineage. Am I correct?
Yeah. I mean, in college, I was in Hawaii, so we focused on early 20th century.
Yeah.
And we were so far from New York that I felt like, you know, some people were doing installations, and I just thought I wanted to be a good painter.
Yeah.
You know, and I had taken for art history, one of my classes I had taken early 20th century, but I didn't take the second half of the 20th century art history class. So I missed out on so much. I was just in my own world. I guess I was into Hopper too. And
yeah.
And, you know, it was before the internet. It was in the early 90s. So it's like, if you didn't hear about these art, like there's nowhere to, it's not like we had these great shows coming through. But I remember my teacher, one of my teachers told me I was painterly, you know, and so I thought, oh.
How did you take that? Like, how did you, it sounds like you took that as a pretty good compliment.
Well, I just thought painting can be broken up into just two groups in handling the paint. It's painterly or linear. But, you know, it's not that simple. But yeah, I think my work is painterly. I really identify with a lot of the German artists, the older dudes that are still alive. Like, I love Marcus Lupertz and Baselitz and I admire a lot of figurative work like Cherry Pickles in England, Christopher Brown. I love R.B. Kitaj, Eric Fischl. I think I identify more with figurative painters, Charles Garabedian. I know I have a natural affinity with the Bay Area figurative, and I love them, but I never set out to be in that category. And,
yeah, I didn't think so either.
No,
That's not what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
I
don't think they even like to be in that category, but I think
not.
the light, I mean, I grew up in Hawaii. I lived in Greece. I've lived in places that have very strong lighting or light. But I think, you know how in some languages they have words that better describe something that we don't have a word for? I think that there should be more words for painterly than Bay Area figurative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And painterly can mean so many different things to other people. That's also why I was asking what exactly it meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, I love, you know, when I first moved here, there were so many shows, Deben Korn shows, and, you know, I went to all the museums, and I love that work, you know. But I've changed my brushes. I only use round brushes now, because I used to use those bright brushes that would be dragging the paint and kind of doing everything all at once, get all to be in that moment. And I just tried to move away from that. And now I use a round brush, and I paint with my arms still, but kind of flit around the brush a little bit more. And I also, if I'm painting a figure, I'll just paint the figure and let it sit, let it dry and really kind of either paint it out or add or whatever. I don't like to do everything all at once. And
is there a reason for that?
I enjoy working on a surface that is just dry. I like the layering. And since I've started experimenting with the reductive lino cuts, I love that one layer can save everything. You can work and work and work, and then just maybe put a layer over it, and it just kind of holds it into place. And I like to do that with oil paint too.
Yeah. Do you feel like, it seems, just looking at your work, it seems like everything is kind of process oriented. You're kind of like finding something as you go, and it feels like a very natural expression. I love your paintings. I think you're one of my favorite painters, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think your work is really, really fantastic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I hope. I want it to be good, but if you look at a show, each painting represents a ton of failure, and I know most of us are we remember the failures more than the success. So, I wanted to just keep growing and changing. I've been in transition so much since I've moved to California. I feel like I'm at a place where I can explore what I'm doing. Although I have moved to canvas now. I just bought some canvases, and it's a brand new thing again. But I love it. It's just so great to work on canvas again. But I feel like I'm going to explore these figures and you're seeing here for a while and see where it leads. You know? But it feels kind of good to just be at this place, because I was just really not happy for many, many years. I have paintings from throughout the years, and I feel fondness for them. But I also remember just so much struggle and so much so many dead ends and tangents. But I know that they're useful, and I'm glad I was able to explore that territory at least.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think sometimes just being able to cognitively reframe things in our minds, because a failure now, everyone's failed at something. People are fallible creatures. We're all fallible creatures, Now I think of failures as almost a gift. Maybe I don't think of it at that time as a gift, but kind of reframing that in my head and saying, oh, this is a good thing I learned from that scenario. Do you feel that way with painting?
Yeah, I think R.B. Kittai, one of his quotes is painting is about failure, the artistic process is you learn what doesn't work first, and finding your voice, it's about failure. And it's like that bumper sticker, like always make new mistakes, or, it's great. It's great because, you can't walk up to a canvas and say, okay, now I'm going to make a great painting. You have to be open to whatever's going to happen. You can't be all pinched. And another great quote that I think about a lot in the past couple years is one of Paula Rego's quotes is, don't try to get it right. She said, you can look at a painting, you can tell they were trying to get it right. Let it be wrong and just let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like, isn't that the psychosis though? I think it's just more of a humanistic thing, but just the idea of getting it right. Like, what does that even mean? Yeah. What does it mean to get it right? It's such an arbitrary, it's more of a feeling, because right for you could be wrong for someone else. Right for me is wrong for someone else. So it's like, might as well just explore and constantly put yourself in the headspace to constantly explore. Those are things I think about.
Yeah. If you think that you're just here to just turn out these successful paintings or whatever, you're thinking of what other people consider success, and then you don't really learn to trust yourself. So if you learn to trust yourself, then you can stand by your work more, and you can be that asshole that I was talking about, those male painters that I admire so much, because you have self-trust.
Yeah.
You should say, I think it's good, or I painted that because I wanted to, and I think it's good.
Yeah.
And it's about failure and showing up and doing ridiculous things and then seeing what happens and then learning to trust yourself. And I think what makes a piece of art good is they did it because they felt like it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what I aspire to,
Yeah.
Not, I could be here. I could just spend my time painting some figures in a room with bright light and next to a big window. But that's what people expect is a nice picture. But I want to say something, I want to say something more personal. And so if I'm just sort of letting things happen, then it'll come out eventually.
I agree.
So.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like constantly putting yourself in that state of mind. And I guess that's where I was going with that earlier about the idea of just, allowing other people's insecurities to override our natural state of being. I think, that the saying "fuck you" is, even if it's in a very understated way, I think it's totally fine because it's your life. It's you, it's your thoughts, I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel that where people find themselves in a very precarious, unhappy place in life is because they don't listen to that inner child or that thing that will bring you back to your center,
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's hard. I think like I said, the stakes are so high. It's expensive to live anywhere. You can't even live in a city anymore. And so it's hard to give yourself time to really kind of discover and find what you're supposed to do, especially if you're getting so much rejection. But again, the rejection is all, one of those blessings in disguise. I think it just because it makes you care less about, you hope people like it, then that you constantly are rejected. Then after a while, you just go, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to do it. And if you don't like it, it makes me actually even more happy that you don't like it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it just pushes me even more. And
yeah, definitely.
For me personally, I don't have that personality. I mean, I think I kind of do way, way down deep inside, but I think I'm also just kind of a polite person and and make everybody happy. So it was hard to really kind of find that in when I was painting,
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I think that's why, like, whether it's a painting or whether it's a film, but you can feel when someone's trying to pander to you.
Yeah.
Like people can understand that, even if they're, like on a subconscious level or a unconscious level or whatever, like you can feel that. And I think that's why, just something off the top of my head, that's why I like Cassavetes films so much, is they're just so unapologetic and they're so visceral with real human emotions. And you kind of get lost in there and you're like, wait, am I watching a feature film or is this a documentary or what is this? Like, Yeah. And, I don't know, I guess, but that's just my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why jazz and again, punk is so great because it just, like what just happened, like,
Yeah, it is. It's a feeling, like when I look at your artwork, all the pain and the everything, I just feel it in there. That's something interesting. I can only see this one right here, but I'm just kind of referencing it as a whole, because
I had to sort of trick myself into feeling comfortable, with a larger scale. I had worked with collage. I started collaging stuff onto the panels. It kind of renewed the surface because, from working on them and scraping, they were so bumpy, and pretty soon there's just too much resistance. So I would glue things on and paint over it and scratch away and glue more stuff and paint. And I was working on these panels for months, and 1 week it would be about this, then it would be about something else. And I felt like I was learning so much. It was kind of exciting, but I could never really finish the panel,
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I ended up starting to get very comfortable in painting large scale figures because it became secondary. And then before you know it, I just put away the collage. Or what happened was I had these two panels I had been working since, one I started in September and the other one I started in October, and this was January or so. And I just said, what, this just needs a big figure on there. So I put one, and then it needed another figure. And then I was able to put away the collage and just work on a panel. And
what do you think the purpose of that was?
It was, I was afraid. I didn't know, I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole that I had gone down a few years earlier of working large scale, where I was just tearing my hair out, and I didn't know what it was supposed to look like, and I would paint something, it would look kind of weird. I'm like, am I a weird painter now? Or, is it supposed to look hyper real? And I don't know. So I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole and fall into despair again. And so, but it just happened. I started painting the large figures, and it became easy. It was, I didn't overthink it. I stopped overthinking it. So, in about April, I completed the first one, and I said, okay, I think I know what I'm after here. So I did several over the summer, and, not that they happen right away. I mean, they take a long time, and it's not like I need 18 hours a day. I mean, they take just time, like abstract amount of time, and they need to sit on the wall, and I need to figure out what the next step is, or maybe the next step is just get rid of whatever's there and paint something new. But I don't know. I forget what the question was.
Yeah, no. I don't.
Happened?
I forget what the question was either. I think. I think I was asking about why, when you started working on the larger scale works, why you started to collage at first.
Oh yeah. The collage. It was just sort of like it was like a decoy objective. It was like a fake objective that I was focused on. And meanwhile, the shift in scale happened. And also at the same time, I started doing the printmaking, and I was talking about the layers, and the layers really helped me slow down the painting process. Cause the layers in lino cuts, you really have to stop and think about what you're subtracting, and then you put a color down, then you subtract some more. And like I said, one layer can save it, can be going very, very badly. And then you might put this final layer of black, of the darkest darks, and all of a sudden everything's sort of pinned down. And it kind of happened at the same time. It just informed my painting, I guess. And yeah, so right now the next step is working with the canvas, but I'm just loving it. It just feels so great to work on that springy surface, and also you can put. I mean, I'm not putting tons of paint on there, but you can put a little bit more paint than the panels. Like for panels, the more you put on, the more it'll come off, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you can put a little bit more, so you can kind of carve into it. So I'm enjoying that, but I'm at the beginning stages of all this new work. So
how's that feel?
It's exciting. since it's cold, the paint dries slower. So every day I walk in my studio, I'm touching all the surfaces. Like, what can I work on? But because I
you
like,
don't want to smear it.
yeah,
smear
I
oil
like
paint.
a kind of a dry. I like going just over things when they're dry. Maybe in a few years, I'll only want to work on purely wet things. I don't know, but
Yeah.
sometimes when the paintings are all sort of, I like working on paintings at different stages and having, when you're just firing on all cylinders, I guess, as in your studio, when you're at this moment where you got a new piece, you got maybe some that you've discarded or you've resurrected some from a year or two ago. I like it when that happens, but right now I've started a bunch of new ones, so who knows? I hope it works.
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
I don't want to just jinx it right now. But.
Okay, well, we'll knock on wood right here. We have a wood table right in front of us that I knocked because that's what people do for good luck.
Yes. It's nice to have that handy because sometimes you're
just
searching for something wood to knock on.
Yeah. Searching for the wood, searching for woods, searching for being in the woods.
Yes. Then you knock on your head and make a joke out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think like, it's interesting because I'm, under the impression of just like understanding, being, process oriented. I think that's just the way I am, just trying to constantly like find things, whether it's verbally or, through writing or photography or whatever, but just utilizing a lot of mediums to be able to, I guess, translate some sort of something within me, some sort of meaning with podcasts or whatever, but,
So the photography, did you, when you were studying photography, did you do other media or?
Well, in the first stages, I think, I was just trying to understand technically how it works, because I'm self-taught, and in the beginning, I was just trying to see, so how do you process film? How do you do this and that? And like, how do you correctly expose something, and just understanding technical things? And I think that could be translatable through like painting and drawing as well, because, you have to understand like how, what's anatomically correct, quote unquote, and those things. Right. But, during the process, I collaborated with a lot of people, and then was just kind of understanding like, I collaborate with people doing 3D scanning stuff, and I painted a little bit myself, and writing and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just keep on trying to find new mediums and try, I guess, gather the vocabulary to express myself in those mediums, because I'm under the impression too, like it's like you're going to do this for the rest of your life. It's like, might as well continue to do it and put yourself in a position where you can continually do it and kind of accept the struggles of doing it. You know, and try to be kind to yourself during the process, because it's easy to kind of get into that mental abyss of utter, I don't know, mental chaos or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think to be an artist, no matter what media you're in, there's a lot of gray days, and you just kind of power through them, and you're not too excited about what you're doing, or you're tired of being unsure of what it's supposed to look like. And I like to read. I love to collect art books, and I like to read them and read what they've gone through. And Philip Guston, of course, everyone loves him, and he like famously could not paint after his retrospective at the Guggenheim or something of his abstract work. He got tired of it, and he wanted to tell stories. So I think he couldn't paint for a year and a half, and then I think the first thing he painted was like a hand, it's like a dramatic story, but can you imagine day after day of just failing in the studio, and just not knowing where it's heading. Yeah. And I think you have to kind of go through that, and it is worth it because, you want it to be kind of a life of exploring and discovery. And I think that's what makes an interesting painting is, that the artist is discovering it at that moment that they're painting it, I think that's what draws me to an artist or a painting.
Yeah. It's part of my personal journey, just understanding, it's cathartic, just understanding that you're not the only one that is struggling through this life that you've chosen for yourself, and there's just like, life is so rich and there's so much like that can be extracted from it, and just, through the pain and the struggle and like the good and the bad and everything, there's just, it's so overwhelmingly complicated and simple at the same time. Yeah. In this weird way.
I know, even, when you have a show up, you're just like, oh yeah, it was a struggle. And it's just, you're just saying these words, and it really can't really, you almost forget the pain, but I've written on my studio wall, like, I wrote, it was so risky, just to remind myself, when, a couple paintings, like I decided to put this, I don't know, a big car or whatever. It wasn't easy. I was worried, like, am I gonna, is this gonna really not work? So, I have to remind myself, because it's like, do you remember how they had these memes or whatever, or something was on the internet, like watching these movies backwards, like Godzilla, it changes the narrative completely. It was like Godzilla was like a benevolent lizard that came out of the water and put buildings back together or something like that. If you look at a painting going backwards, you go, oh, all I did was this and this. No, there was a lot of destruction, and I don't even remember that. So I wrote that on my studio wall, just to remind myself, because the next struggle I have, I want to know I've been through this before. Yeah. And I think writers must, the writer's block, that must be kind of terrifying. And
yeah, I think, I guess that's, going back to what we were talking about earlier about just forcing something to occur. Sometimes it's just an internal struggle, and, maybe you need to sit in those feelings and feel those feelings at that moment, or maybe you can just go the path of least resistance and come back to it later and, work on something else, like just write down in a journal how you feel about it. And maybe that gets juxtaposed next to the work in some way, or, but I think like, it's interesting how, now I think like psychological mental wellness is like pretty prevalent and well talked about, but it's interesting how there's still a lot of people that are very much like sort of uncomfortability avoidant, or like, but it's interesting. One of my friends, it's interesting when someone says something to you right at that moment when you need to hear it, and it sticks with you, and you talk to them about it later, and they're like, I don't remember saying that to you. But for some reason, whether it's that film that they said one quote, and you're like, wow, that really just changed my perspective in it. It's like you're on a pathway and there's a fork in the road, and then you just realize, oh, wow, I can go that other way, and you didn't realize it. So one of my friends said, I was telling him something I was going through, and he's like, why don't you just sit in those feelings and feel it? And I was like, oh, wow. You mean I've just been kind of like burying all these things in my subconscious and not trying to deal with it, like, and yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just an interesting little microcosm of life in a weird way. Yeah.
Yeah. It all comes out in the creative process, right? you see yourself. I think that's why, we have these patterns in our brains and patterns of bad behaviors or destructive patterns, and you see that come out in painting all the time, and it's hard to break through that. Or a lot of people who are learning to paint, you just find yourselves doing the same things, and you end up the results the same, and you don't like it, or it's just fear, and you can feel yourself holding back. So yeah, something someone says to you might change. It's funny because there's an artist in Sacramento who's in his 80s. His name is Jack Ogden, has not gotten his due. He taught at Sac State for years. And he's, if you Google him, you won't find him, but he's just this amazing painter. And he came to my studio, and it's funny because I had some work up and it was all scraped off. He goes, well, what was wrong with this? I said, oh, it looked like Bay Area figurative. And he understood.
Oh, now I feel bad for saying that earlier.
Don't worry about it. And it's not that I just don't want to be stuck there, but
no,
anyway,
I know. I'm just messing with you.
No. So anyways, he was looking at other work, and I said, oh, I'm going to paint over that. And he goes, well, why don't you just paint over part of it? Why don't you scare yourself? And, if someone comes to your studio and says, here's your orders, scare yourself, it's kind of like freedom. You know what I mean? Because, it does not say, if someone comes to your studio and says, paint something good, that's terrifying. It's horrible. But someone says, scare yourself, then it's like, you can do anything you want,
Yeah.
So that changed me. That changed a lot. I owe so much just to him for saying those words. And it's funny also, in this day and age, we have iPhones. So we all take pictures of our work in process. And sometimes I find myself going through old pictures, and I look at all these old paintings that I painted over. I didn't like it instantly. I was upset because it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I go, oh, look, that's not half bad. But on the other hand, I also see something from that painting coming up now, like I wasn't ready to handle it then, or I'm still doing that, or I'm still interested in that. And it's kind of interesting. So you can't, I think we're inherently the same person as we approach the canvas, but I think we can make little breakthroughs. So it's both, I think. You can make these monumental changes, but we're also still the same person, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I can only chalk it up to my own personal experience because I know myself, right? But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've always been pretty carefree and like goofy and, all those things. But I've also been informed by, curiosities and reading literature and watching films and speaking with great artists like yourself.
You gotta edit that out.
Oh, I mean it though. I mean it. But okay, I'll stop kissing your ass. But like, I mean, it's interesting what you said. It's like, but I still feel like the same person in certain ways. I'm just informed by all these life experiences, like the good and the bad and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think when you're, especially when you're younger, and you want to think that you want to be a different person. I think it's that famous Charles Garabedian quote where he said, every time I walked into my studio, I wanted to be a different person. And, yeah. But I think, an older artist is more settled and more, relaxed. And I think that's why a lot of older artists, their work gets really pared down to real simple, like de Kooning or can't think of who else. I don't know. You can edit that.
No, de Kooning
I thought I was making this brilliant point.
de Kooning is a great example. I mean, de Kooning is a fantastic artist.
Yeah, R.V. Kitai, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Matisse, maybe they're impaired a little bit, so they have to sort of pare it down. But
I think that's also beautiful, like, just the understanding of, I guess, the fragility of life, and our physical corporeal beings will be decaying eventually.
Yeah.
But I think, like, even Matisse was painting till he was dead. I mean, until he was dead,
Yeah.
And there's something freeing about that, I think, like understanding that you're going to do this no matter what. And I guess something that I tell myself a lot is just do it with kindness, like, just, if you're having a bad day, it's fine. It's fine to have a bad day. Everyone has bad days. If someone wants to make you feel bad about having a bad day, then fuck off. It's it's like, you're not better than I am. Like, we're human. We're fallible.
Yeah.
I mean, even in like conversations when you're meeting someone new, it's like you have the option to either hide things about yourself, and obviously you're not going to get all the information because people have many years where they've had many experiences, but it's like you have the option to either hide things from people or be authentic, and I think those things read, even in a social media context or in like a person-to-person context, they read a lot more. I don't know, there's an authenticity there that I think people appreciate. Some people appreciate, some people don't, but
yeah, I'm just thinking about this interview and how it's going to play back. And in my mind, I'm already like, I would probably want to cut and paste conversations or paragraphs that I've said and put it next to reinforce something else that I said, a half hour ago. And, it's hard to, that's what makes social media or texting so great, because, you can just delete but I really feel like that this is like painting. Like that's what I want my paint. I don't mind if whatever didn't work is still showing, or, I was thinking, why should I be bothered about what I'm saying is not making sense, or what I'm saying belongs in, what I said 10 minutes ago, when that's how my paintings are, like, you know what I mean? Unpolished, so.
But I think that's what's so good about your work, is that it's honest. It feels honest.
Yeah. I think
you can see all of everything that you put into it, so you can tell me if some things are honest or not, but it feels like there's just something about good work where you feel the soul of the person being translated through paints and pigments and what I mean? It's, so I don't know.
Well, I keep looking at those same two paintings too. So
yeah. It's funny that you keep on looking at them, because I cannot see them.
I keep turning my head and looking at this dumb painting. But anyway.
But hey, in a year, you might come back to it and be like, oh, wow, that was a really good painting.
I know. It's just so funny. We just have our relationship with our work changes over time. And so that's the way it works, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting, to hear about this famous painting by Lucian Freud of the male, that Lee Bowery is his name.
Yeah.
That seated male, and he's, this massive human being, and it's just his back. And Lucian Freud does not believe that was a successful painting. I mean, this is what I read in this interview. And I think the interviewer was like, trust me, it's successful. It's like a really great painting, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just whenever you create something, it's like you understand the whole process of what went on to create that thing. So, whether it's good or bad, the way it gets perceived to other people, we can bring this back to stoicism. It's like you're not in control of what other people, how other people view a piece of artwork. It's just that's just how it is. It's just not. It's out of your hands once it's out there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think I saw that piece actually at London's Calling over at the Getty. They had.
Oh, I didn't see that show. Oh, you lived there, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that was amazing. There's these Francis Bacon, Auerbach, Lucian Freud, and a bunch of a lot of other painters during that movement. But yeah, that was a very powerful show. Yeah, it was a really good show.
I wish I could have seen it.
Yeah.
Just wasn't doable to just hop on a plane.
Yeah, just for that show.
Yeah. That would be living the dream for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this. I think, I generally end with one question, and that's, do you have any advice for artists and creatives that are listening to this?
Well, gosh, wait, let me think.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can think. We're not playing speed chess.
I would say to just paint as much as you can and paint every day and be patient with yourself and give yourself time to let things develop and look at a lot of work and in person and getting out, and if you can travel, getting out of where you live, I think is important, and find someone or some people to look at your work and give you honest feedback. And I mean, the most important thing is to just paint. I think there's just, and also what they said to us in college, paint like a thief, look at other work. I think you got to pass through a lot of different artists. I mean, I loved Hopper. I mean, if you look at, I think my mom has some paintings of mine from college in the attic. I just have like these rooms. When I had no business painting rooms really, but I, passed through that phase too. Yeah, I think feedback, looking at other work is very, very important. And the number one thing is to just don't stop painting.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be something that you want to wake up and do over anything else.
Yeah, I agree. It's like that famous Thomas Edison quote that I'm probably going to butcher, but I think he was saying something about the antidote of failing is continue to make work, just keep on doing it.
Is that the 99% perspiration, 1% aspiration? No. Is that quote?
I don't know. I mean, that totally wasn't the quote, but that was the meaning of it. Yeah. So if anyone wants to send that quote my way, because I don't know how to use Google myself,
Does that happen?
What?
Does that happen to people Google things and give you feedback and say, "Oh, well, you got that wrong," or maybe I don't know. I probably just disregarded it. No, yeah.
If it did.
I know. It's funny because you read things and then you just interpret them and then you own it after a while and then you say it back and then you realize that you got the quote all wrong, but it still helped you. So
yeah,
it's fine, I guess.
I mean, that's like artwork.
Yeah.
It's like artwork is a misinterpreted quote or something. I don't know. But I appreciate it. Seriously. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And I hope that you can get something good out of it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Music for the podcast is by Rarebit, a.k.a. Justin Dosher Hopkins. Creative producer is Kelly Kekich, and editing help by Matthew A. Paul.